Presentation of ad valorem taxes by Louis Fitzmorris, assessor. Mr. Fitzmorris?
Good evening. Thank you for having us here. I'd like to introduce my Chief Deputy, Troy Dugas, who's with me here this evening. And any questions, feel free while we're making the presentation and stuff, feel free to ask. I may defer a little bit to Troy. He's my numbers guys and everything. But we're going to go ahead and get started. What I'd like to do tonight is, in talking with Terry and stuff, and I'm going to go ahead and mention the great relationship we do have with our office and your office and the financial part with Terry and Troy. They talk on we're getting about this time of the year almost a daily basis. But we have a great working relationship with the school board, and that's appreciated on our end. So what I'd like to do tonight is talk about the reassessment, the process that we're going to be going through, some information on the tax base, where the money is coming from, and also I'm going to give a little perspective. We're going to have some examples and do some historical data show as far as the school board and the history with their millages. And I'm going to go ahead and give my perspective on why I think it's more difficult to get taxes passed now in St. Tammany Parish. So let's go ahead and get started here. Once again, we're going to talk about reassessment. This is what we do. We list, discover, and value all the property, taxable property in St. Tammany Parish. The amount of taxes is based on the taxing bodies. Of course, we play a part on it because of that value, but really the tax rates and the taxes you pay doesn't come from us. And also, I always like to tell everyone, we don't send out the bills, nor do we collect the money. The Sheriff's Department does that. But what we do is mass appraisal. What we do, we look at any given property, and we basically give it a grade based on the quality of construction. We do that throughout the parish. We'll look at a given area, subdivision, neighborhoods, and stuff like that, and we assess the property. So generally speaking, well, all land is assessed at 10% of fair market value. Residential improvements are assessed at 10%, but commercial improvements are assessed at 15%. Of fair market value. And I want to keep that in mind. Y'all remember that as we get a little further into this and talk about who's paying the taxes. The best example I give for what we do is what Kelly Blue Book value does for vehicles. Basically, that's what we do, like I said, on a mass scale. So we are required to produce a tax roll every year. But every 4 years, we are required to reassess. Our last reassessment was in 2020, this one here in 2024. There is a time period that we use in cells to establish the values for the next 4 years. It's just not going to be for 2024, it's going to be all the way to 2028, to the next reassessment. So the time frame for this, our starting date is January 1, of 2023. But what we do is we go 6 months backwards, 6 months forward. So really, the cells from July of 22 through June of 23, that is that year's time period that we're going to use to value all the taxable property, real property in St. Tammany Parish. Now, once again, this is reassessment year. Why do we reassess? When voters approve millages, what they're really doing, they're approving a budget. It's not like sales tax, where you may, let's say, pass a quarter-cent sales tax. Well, that's what it is. When you go to the ballot, that's what it says, quarter-cent for so many years. What that revenue generates can change from year to year. But when you put up for a ballot for the millages, you're putting a budget amount. You're putting a dollar amount, what that mill is worth. Right now, and we got an example here that I'm going to go through, but right now a mill is worth about $2.5, $2.6 million. We go ahead and, let me go ahead and jump in my notes here and stuff. What we're going to do, we're going to look at the millage rates, because what we're trying to do is be revenue neutral. And I do it in quotes like that because what we're doing on our end is looking at the value of property. We're not really putting in the growth. So you're going to still, there has not been a reassessment that we've done. Well, this is our third one. So the last two, where even when we've rolled back the mills, the taxing bodies still have gotten a little bit more money. We're very conservative with this. We're very careful with this. I have my perspective when I was mayor of Abita Springs. Actually, one of the reasons why I made this run for assessor 11, 12 years ago was just the frustration, you know, with the change orders and the numbers and the bills going on. I know how important it is, particularly for the school board, for fire districts, and even my office that really just work off the ad valorem taxes, which are the millages. So what we're going to do, we're going to look at all the values and stuff, and I'm going to show you examples, and then Troy, along with his assistant chief, Debbie Fendelson, are going to look at the numbers and work on the millage rate and reset the mills. Now, more often than not, really as long as we've been around, in my expectation in the future, values have gone up. But if values were to come down, we could actually reset those mills higher to make it get to a certain point. Because this is what I want to emphasize, and we'll get into it. You're asking for a specific dollar amount, and we're going to go ahead and get into these examples here. So it's reassessment, mandatory rollback with optional roll forward. So what we're going to do is we're going to reset the mills for every taxing body that's receiving ad valorem tax. The only mills that we don't reset or change are bonds. That's done by you getting with the bonding attorneys because you have to collect whatever you need in order to pay that debt. So we don't fool with it. We only look at the operational mills. And so what we'll do, we'll give you new millage rate. You are required to roll back to those new mills. You have no choice. But you are allowed to roll back up, to roll forward up to your adjusted max rate with a 2/3 vote of the board. You can do that. If you do that, you are raising taxes. And the reason I say that is, and we're going to get into some examples. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's say, and I'm doing this because it's easy math for us, for me. One mill, let's say one mill generates $1 million parish-wide. Let's say that has increased value-wise by 10%. So now a mill is worth $1,100,000. Well, you didn't ask for $1,100,000 when you did that. You asked for $1 million. So we're going to reset those mills. It's still going to be a little bit more because, once again, of the growth. But we're going to read that to try and achieve revenue neutral. So we're going to roll that back. Now, why would you want to roll it back up? You may need the funds, or, and this is an important reason, you may want to protect that max millage rate that you have. And the way to do that, you have to roll up, you have to put it in place, and you have to collect it for a year. Then you can roll it back, just 1 year. Just 1 year, and that way you can protect that millage rate. Now, you have enough mills where you can maybe lower one, raise another, and make things different, you know, I mean, neutral. Like me, I only have one mill. So in order to protect mine, 1 year, I'm going to have to roll up, collect it, then I will roll back down. So let's see. What's that? Yeah. So if you roll back, then that's what your rollback will be. And Troy, feel free to jump in anytime. And so it would be rolled back to remain revenue neutral to 0.91. So that's what we would give you. That would be the new millage rate that we would give you, and you would be required to adopt. Any questions on any of this so far? Okay. Did I go?
No, you did fine.
Okay, all right. So, yeah. So, like I was saying before, if you were to roll back up to that 1 mil, then that would be a 10% tax increase. All right. So, looking at where the money comes from and looking at it. So we've got a pie chart up here. Ooh, that looks a little blurry. It's not on my screen though. But you can see with this that the majority of the taxpayers in this parish are residential. We're at about, what, Troy, about 70% of all the ad valorem taxes paid in this parish are by residential property owners.
Highest in the state.
It's the highest in the state. A lot of ways it makes sense. We don't want to have, like our neighbors, we're the fourth largest parish in the state now, with East Baton Rouge, Jefferson, Orleans, then us. And one thing that our neighbors have that we don't have, well, the biggest thing they have that we don't have is the Mississippi River and all the industry and stuff that goes along it. They also have gaming, which we don't have and don't want to have. And so we have made choices here in this parish that we would want to be more suburban, more residential, no big industries, and that comes with a cost. Somebody's got to pay these taxes. And for the most part, it's the residential property owners here in St. Tammany Parish. So this is the top 10 taxpayers. Even though the majority is paid by residential property owners, the biggest bills go out to these businesses. About 10%? About 10% of the roll, just these 10 businesses here, with Clico being the top one. All right, so where's the revenue go? So here's another pie chart here and stuff, and you can see where the school board now, I believe, is at 43.88% goes to there. Then the next highest would be fire protection, then parish government. And when I say parish government, that's not coop job per se. That is the library, animal control, public health. It's all the agencies they control are in that pot. And they have a small general fund portion that goes to that too. All right. So this is just a little historical information on the school board and your millages over the years. And you can see at one time y'all were at 48%, and that was starting in 2003. And so in 2003, y'all were 48% of the taxes that were collected in St. Tammany Parish. Now you're, like we were saying before, right around 43%. And you can also see this is your millage rate, where in 2003 it was 87.1, and now we are at 62. And the school board has historically been very, very good about rolling back and staying back. And this will show you right here, is that over that starting in 2003, 2004, going to 2023, because of the millages that y'all left off, rolled back and not rolled them back up, that it's what, $113,927,077 that y'all, in a sense, kind of could say left on the table, that you gave back to the taxpayers.
It's probably higher than that, counting what rolled off permanently. This is just the difference between the max and the adjusted.
Exactly. So you could look at it if you wanted to. It could even be more.
Terry probably could give you that number.
Yeah, but it's an impressive number. It's an impressive number. And that's something to be proud of. Now I'm getting into a little bit about, let me get to my notes here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the homestead and why I think it's more difficult to pass taxes now. Because it wasn't that long ago, and I'm going to use a house. I'm going to actually use Troy's house as an example in Abita Springs. And in 1995, the house in Abita Springs with a $75,000 homestead exemption was on the roll for $81,300 market value and paid $90.17 in parish taxes. The homestead exemption was 92% of the home's value. Here we are in 2023. The same house had a market value of $207,690, and the same homestead exemption paid $1,891 in parish taxes. The homestead exemption was only 30% of the home's value now.
And it's going to be worse after reassessment.
It is going to be a lot worse after this reassessment, because this is by far going to be probably our most consequential reassessment. It's a lot easier to pass taxes when that person doesn't have to pay the taxes or pay very little. Times have changed. Just in 20 years, it has changed considerably, value-wise. And this just gives you an example, and we had our IT guy. I said, when Troy showed me this, I was this can't be right. Ask Steve to look at this again, but he did. So in 1980, the homestead exemption is $75,000.
Or 7,500.
7,500. Okay. So what that would be worth now is, now this is assessed value, huh?
Right.
Okay.
So it'd be $27,734 assessed value.
Add a zero to that.
So $277,000 house would be totally homestead exempted if we'd allowed for consumer price index since the inception of the homestead exemption 50 years ago. So over time, by not doing anything to the homestead exemption, the tax base has automatically been shifted from businesses to residences in a big way.
And especially here in St. Tammany. And we're a little different in this regards, but it's significant in this parish. So this is just showing with the homesteads over time, and what we did with the assistance of the school board and other agencies. When we got into office, we knew something just wasn't right with the homesteads. We hired a firm to investigate. There was about 2,500 ineligible homesteads that we found and took off. Each homestead saves the taxpayer about $1,000. So do the math on that. That was a lot of money that got put in. So that was a wise investment on y'all's and everybody's part to do this. So you can see where this graph was going up and how now it's considerably and is more leveled. So we're around 75,000 or so homesteads now. When we took office, going into it was 73. There was, because there was that many ineligibles on there that we took care of. This is just showing you the growth between the senior freeze and disability freeze and also the others. At least with the senior and disability freezes, what the freezes does is it freezes the value of the property, not the taxes, but the property. So this reassessment year, someone 65 and older meets the income requirements, which is $100,000 or less, they won't see their value go up. It will stay the same as it was before. That's the advantage you get with having the senior freeze. And over time, that's a serious event. And we hadn't quite figured out, because it's not going to be easy, what the difference is in the money there. But over time, as you can see with this graph, we're getting more and more and more and more of them. All right, this is just the grand recap here. I know I got some notes on that. Yeah, we got, altogether, we have around 141,000. I think this says maybe 145, but it changes. One thing about the grand recap, it changes, I could say almost daily, because things come on, things go off, particularly on the business end of it. But we have around 11,000 BPPs as business personal property. That's the equipment and stuff like that that a business has. We have about 6,500 commercial properties, with about 3,500 of those having improvements. about 100,000 improved residential, so homes, and the rest being residential land. Also, we also tell you, when you're looking at this and getting the grand recap, there's two things we ask you to do. There's 3% goes to pensions, so that comes off that. And also, we look to have hopefully no more than a 3% change with change orders or people not paying their bills, stuff like homesteads. Homesteads, you can apply to homesteads all the way to the last day of the year. And more often than not, even if you come in after, I can give it to you for 3 years back. We usually just go 1 year back. So that's what we deal with towards the end the most, is homesteads. Let's see.
Only 4,800 people don't pay taxes, 4,800?
Yeah. And so, yeah, thank you, Troy. That's a good reminder.
Lowest in the state.
Yeah, is that we only about 5%, less than 5,000 people in this parish are fully homestead exempted. Usually those are living in house trailers or really, really old homes and stuff, or been on the senior freeze for years. That is the lowest number in the entire state. And that number is going to continue to go down because our values continue to go up. So far, any questions in regards to any of this? Okay. The last thing I'm going to show you, there's a new rule that came into effect. It actually, in a few years old, this is what I call an Orleans law. It was put in the Orleans Parish request. It was about property that goes up value-wise over 50%. What that happens, and here's our example with that, is you can break up that increase in 4 payments over the 4 years. So just real quick, you got a $225,000 home, $75,000 exemption, homestead exemption, 150 brings it 150,000. It increases 50,000. We do your millage rates and everything. So what you're going to end up with, if I can understand this correctly, is that you're just going to break up that increase. So it's going to be $12,000 the first year, the bill.
1,600.
Where am I at, Troy?
1,600. 1,600, then 1,769, then 1,946.
I hate when Steve does his assess stuff for
Okay.
you know, but yeah. But anyway, what it does, or I'm going to even do it easier, where if it's 1,000, it goes up twice as much. You would be 250, it'd be 1,250 1 year, it'd be 1,500 the second, it'd be 1,750 the third, and then the final 2,000 at the end. That's what I should have had Steve do.
Yeah. The long and short of it is that half of the tax increase is over the 4 years, you'll only pay half of the total tax increase. And that's never recovered by the taxing bodies. But we're going to have to make those calculations so we can share that information with Terry, so we can, the grand recap does not change.
Yeah, the grand recap's going to show the whole value, what they owe. And we're going to try and put something together that shows you what you're going to actually get from those individuals.
The obligation in the statute really falls on the sheriff, but we'll help the sheriff and we'll help the taxpayers and the taxing bodies know, even though it says this is not going to be recovered in the first year. But you have a built-in growth for the next 4 years. My joke with what's the Grant Sluter is.
Yeah, bonding attorney, yeah.
That in the future, a big part of growth is going to be these phase-ins and people dying and losing the freeze. And that's becoming an increasing number every year. So you kind of got a built-in growth every year in addition to regular growth.
So any questions? We are available. I think y'all got a copy of this. We did a little packet. Yeah, and gave you all the pamphlets. We are available. Any questions? I know I've spoken to members before. Feel free to call, come by, come visit with you. We're here to assist in any way, shape, or form we can. So if there's not, I know y'all got other business.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes, sir.
So based on the numbers Do you expect that everybody will be seeing an increase in their taxes? And
Yes.
by about how much?
It depends on you and all the other taxing bodies and what you do with your mills.
If nobody rolled it forward, we're tax neutral, right? But would individuals have to pay more taxes if nobody rolled it forward?
I would say a little bit. I would say a little bit.
Depends on where you live, too, and how
Yeah.
old your house is.
Yeah.
Depending on the value of the houses that,
Yeah, yes.
around you?
Yes, sir.
But it could actually go down.
That's highly unlikely, highly
I don't think so.
unlikely. Like I said, we
4
build
years,
in a
right.
cushion and,
4 years.
and it's
And-
over a 4-year period of time.
Right,
Because people are
right,
gonna
but
say,
I'm-
oh my goodness, my place went up this much in a year. No, it's been 4 years.
It's gonna go up a quarter of the total that expected. the
Yeah,
first
what we
year.
just- we
And
had
then
in
another
that-
quarter, and then another quarter.
Yeah, that time frame that we're having to use was one of the, throughout the country, one of the hottest time periods for real estate.
But that only happens if you went up 50%.
Yeah,
I
If you went up
understand.
49%.
I understand, but a
Yeah.
quarter of whatever it went up.
Yeah.
Right.
You'll have the first year, and then.
yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir.
50% the next, and until
For
you're
those,
fully caught up.
and we know we're gonna have some of those. We're hoping not to have a lot of them, but we are gonna have some of those. We know that are gonna be 50% or more, yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I speak for my constituents. We pay too much taxes.
Well, then you need to speak to yourself too, then.
Absolutely.
All right, any other questions?
Anybody else?
All right, thank y'all very much, and once again, we are available if you have any questions.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Superintendent, thank you all your
Appreciate it.
board members. Thank you, Terry.